You alright guys, welcome back to another I've Got to Fix That 2 video. As you can see, we've got the SSX303, got a problem with the trigger assembly inside. One of the arms has gone and broken on it, so I'm going to start stripping it down and have a little bit of a chat as I'm doing as well. So I don't know how many of my videos that you've actually watched when I told you on one of them that this was actually down and I've got to get it fixed, and you'll see by that time scale that was that's about 3 months ago now. So I've still been waiting to take delivery of the part that I need for 3 months and it still hasn't come up, so I'm going to be trying something else. Little tip for you, for some of you that don't know, these little nuts that are on here that hold your scope on, if you look, they've got little holes at the side. I don't know if I can show you there. So little holes. If you're out in the field and you haven't got a spanner, or you're at the safe zone and you haven't got a spanner, you use an Allen key, pop it in and just use that to actually undo them, instead of needing to use adjustable spanner to take them off. Might help some out. But so this has been a lot of mucking about for me, trying to get this all sorted and up and running again. And when you take into consideration, when I actually first ordered this, it was 3 months before I actually managed to get everything all sorted to the point of I've got a usable gun to go and enjoy. So taking into consideration 3 months for that, plus 3 months waiting for this part, that's 6 months, and I'm only about another month, 2 months, and then I would have had the gun for a year, which does then make it a little bit pointless on having something that you just got sitting about doing nothing because it's broken. So I am fast becoming not a fan of a certain person. Now, sorry, there's some of you out there that are the absolute diehards and it's all, yeah, this, that and the other, but there's got to be a limit to when you say enough is enough. So hopefully with what I'm going to do, it'll fix it and I'll have a working gun again. But if it all goes wrong again and something else goes and buggers up, I am to the point of, what's the point in carrying on trying to keep on fixing it? There's no point in flogging a dead horse, but we'll see. So this is the problem. That one's held, that one isn't. I'll just gently hold that. You see the other one moves forward. So this is the one that's broken. And because now that means then you've only got one side trying to push the nozzle forward, which then causes the nozzle to cock, which then can, if it doesn't seat right, I'm either not getting the power output that I should on a shot. The next shot it might seat properly, so I get the proper output that I should get, or it seems to as well make it so it double feeds. So we've got to strip that out and put a new one in. So what we're going to need to do is undo this little screw in there, and there is a pin just sitting in there that we've got to knock through as well. I'm going to do the pin first. This is another one of those ones that's a certain way you've got to knock it out. So if you look at the gun, how I've got it sitting at the moment, we've got to knock it out from this side because there'll be a serrated edge on this side. And it's really helpful because they've gone and put a slightly raised bit on here that means you can't actually get in to that pin properly to knock it through easily. So you've got to do it at a slight cock to get it to go through a little bit, and then we're going to have to use pliers on this side to pull it the rest of the way through. And there's quite a fine little screw there. So now hopefully this should just lift out. I'm going to get it to just lift it up to about there. Now I'm going to hold these arms. Let's have a quick look on here. Yeah, so if we can see, pull that forward, you can see there, that grey bit, that's where something should have been on. Chances are a little arm like that sitting on there to allow that to move backwards and forwards. Let's have a look on the other side. So that bit has broken off on the other side, which is another, this is a big flaw. You look how thick this one is compared to this one, and yet this one is just guiding, whereas this one is the one that's actually pushing forward. So once you've pulled forward and you release your trigger for that to go back, that nice chunky one there is pushing back, has got no pressure to it, whereas this thinner one here is the one that's having to put all the pressure in pushing everything all forward to take your shot. Big design flaw on that. This is actually cast rather than being stamped out. Castings are brittle, so that's why that's gone and broken. So this is where the experiment begins. As you can see on this, This is for the SSX23 because I am so tired and waiting for the 303. I've ordered this one that they had in stock so I can try this experiment to see if it's going to work. If it don't work, oh well, it don't work. But if it does work, at least I can have an up and running gun again. And they supply you with another pin. Don't see the point because I've already got the pin and the pins generally ain't a problem. And they supply you with another screw as well. Trouble is, the problems that you have aren't the screws, it's the plastic that the screw goes into, which then goes and buggers up. It's all very well and good supplying you with extra stuff, but the extra stuff is stuff that ain't breaking. So we'll start putting it all back together. That is the thing, you can hear that a difference in the springs. Does actually hit a little bit harder, but then do I want to go and start pulling all this lot apart? Let's just do the experiment, we'll see what happens. See if we can get this put into here. When you put this in, the trigger's going to be pushing up against this, which then won't allow this to drop over those properly. So you've got to sort of push this forward so it pushes the trigger back, which then will allow you to drop back in. Like so. So what we'll do now is we'll put the old screw back in because we don't need to use the new screw. Let's waste a little bit of money. Alright, and just in case you haven't seen any of my videos where I explain this, when you put a screw in, do it as though you're trying to undo it, and you'll feel it drop or even hear it, so it wants to go back down into the original thread. If you go and try forcing it in straight away, you're going to start cutting another thread. When you start cutting another thread, it'll make it even weaker, and then you start getting all problems with this. And there's no need to do it up to the point of, and then you're just twisting the hell out of it. That'll strip it as well. And we'll take our old pin, because the new one is pointless. And push that through to a point of we can't push it through anymore by hand, and then we're just going to have to give that a little tap just to get that down to the surface. The little taps that I do sound a lot more drastic than what they actually do. So there's another problem. And this is a big problem, so I might be able to do this, and then do this. And then we're working again. That's fine. I can't see why this is doing what it's doing. Why is that not cocking on that? And the problem is, once this is back into the 303, I ain't going to be able to get to that unless I go and pull it all apart, slide this slightly out of the 303 to then be able to cock that hammer back to then have to put it all back together again. Right, so that works. So if you hit it like that, so when it's in there, if it does go and do it, I can give the stock a wallop and I'm back up and running again. The only other problem I'm looking at the moment is the little hammer, which is that there. That's what strikes on your valve. Oh, have I got a mag in here? So when this is awkward, that little silver bit that's in there, when that comes forward, that is what strikes on the back of this. See, it's all of this was starting to really get on my nerves. Alright, so that's another little bit of a hint. Not going to be able to see it really, but do this and you might just see a quick flash of it popping out. Okay, so it looks like I'm about to strip it all back down again. Right, okay, I think I know what the problem is, possibly. I've just pulled the old one apart, and I believe what I can just about see, but it's going to be impossible for me to show you here. This little unit here, which is the actual hammer that comes forward, the spring in there I believe should be down a bit further and clipped onto something else, or onto itself possibly. But being as it's just chucked in a bag and then smashed the hell out of so it can be transported over here, chances are that's gone and pinged off. So I shall pull it apart and we shall have a look to see if this is something else I've got to fix in the same damn video. And this is where everything decides to go and start pinging all over the bloody place, and I'm wound up with nothing. Yeah, so this is going to be really hard for you to actually see this. This little spring that's wound round here should have tension on it. It hasn't got any tension on it because the spring that comes down here should be underneath there, but isn't, so that's why that's not pulling that hammer back. Now I'm going to try letting you see as much as I possibly can, but unfortunately there's a possibility that I ain't going to be able to see what I'm doing if I'm trying to show you on the camera. I will do the best I can. I know that's, so that, come on, so that should be under that to then go over that, and then for that to then hook round. Oh God, then that should hook round, and there's just a tiny little bit of a groove there that should be sat in. It honestly feels like this spring is too big to actually go in that part. It's got to go in that part unless it goes over the top of that part. Let's try that. Right, so we put it over the top, so that little peg that's sitting there, we've put it over the top of that there. So now hopefully if I put my finger there, get a hold of this here and lift that over there, we should be able to drop that over onto that. So then hopefully that will now be problem solved. Right, that is hitting, springing out and then dropping back in again. Before I start mucking about and going, look at this, I'll show you, and then it all falls apart, I'm going to get these screws put back in. Quickly drop it into here, because then that'll help make sure everything is in place as well. Right, something that I went and noticed when I was trying to put this back together again. There is a slight difference, and I went and screwed up. They are not exactly the same, are they? This one's got sort of a semicircle cut out of it, whereas this one hasn't. So obviously there's got to be one goes on one side and one goes on the other. Fantastic. This is how they will go back in. So this one that's got the half circle cut out of goes in onto this side. The one without the half circle goes in on the other side. This still won't make any difference from where that wasn't actually going back in. That was still the spring. So carry on. Okay, so that's better now. You can see, hopefully, that that's pinging back in each time. So now that's doing that. This shouldn't go and jam up. So we'll carry on putting it back together again the rest of the way. Now, I haven't adjusted my hopper tool, so that should, in theory, still be firing just as powerful as what it was when I had the original 303 trigger assembly in it. And you'll notice I'm not doing these up yet, because you'll find everything will go in easier if you leave it all sitting about and loose until you've got everything in place, then do your final tightening up. So now she's all back together again. Now we're going to try to get her up to the UK legal DMR joules. So, unfortunately, you're going to have a look at that upside down. So I've got it set at the 0.43s that I use, and we're looking for the 1.88 for a DMR. 1.14 is going to be your standard ARs. What will be helpful is if I wind the magazine up. Right, try that one again. Right, so what I'll do is I'll just give it a little bit. Right, so we're not getting the desired oomph that I want. So, being as we've got this one apart, me checking that spring earlier, so we know what we've got in here. That is down in here. That's the spring. So the only other thing I could possibly do is strip this down, see if I can get that spring off, strip down the gun again, and then replace that spring with the spring that's in there. So literally, if we take that spring out, which don't get me wrong, that's held in there all right. So if we replace this spring with the one that's in the other trigger housing, then that way we'll get the oomph back up, still using a 23 version, but this is the only way I'm going to be able to get an up and running gun again. So let's give that a go. Right, so gun's all back apart, trigger unit's out, we'll pull it apart, see if we can change that spring over. Yeah, honestly, even if I get all this fixed and it works, it's going to be a case of when is it going to go and break again. That is how much confidence I've got in this gun now. Here you go, see, something else just went and pinged. There's that spring out. Right, I'm going to leave that for a second. Remind me to put it back in. That has got to go back up underneath there, but that means that's out of the way at the moment, meaning I can get that off a little bit easier. Push that down, and we're going to have to wiggle this off, trying to keep everything else in place. And how to take that off, take that out, lift that one out like that, and we're going to get hold of this one and put this one in. Hopefully it'll just drop into place there, and that should come round onto there, but I've got to get that spring up underneath there. You see, this is most probably going to be where they've got all special tools for holding this, that and the other down whilst they're putting bits into place. This is why you don't take things apart like this. So let's try holding that there, and try holding all of these bits and pieces together, and let's see if I can just get that. It's going to be easier trying to do it the other way. I'm trying to put this spring into place down there first and holding that down whilst then going and moving the other bit around to hold that there, and then see if we can pull that round, drop it back in there. Right, try another way and get one of these, get that ready so I can hold on to that, get hold of that, push that onto that. This is the only trouble. Every time you go and try putting a bit of tension on something else, everything wants to move. So you're trying to pull something round whilst trying to hold everything into place and also get that to go down there. Which is so much easier said than actually done. Oh, crikey, Jim. So unless you've got the time, the patience and a little bit of know-how at least, I'd leave this damn thing alone. Now hopefully this will just drop straight in. We've got to move that out of the way as it goes in. Oh, and we knock another spring out. Right, so that's back in on that. So that's okay. This, somehow, I've got to get to go back over that. Then that drops back into place. Right, so that's going to keep on pinging out every single time. So what we're going to have to do is move on, and we'll get this one put back into place, and then we'll move back over onto that other one. Right, now let's try getting this one back up over onto that one. They're not strong enough to hold it, so I just have to do this, and hopefully it don't go and stab me in the thumb. So that's over onto that. So now I've got to try getting this back onto that whilst holding that, so then that don't go and ping back out again, and then we should be all good again. Let's get these screws back in. Right, I'm going to drop this back into here, and then hopefully we'll be able to do a little quick test on it. Right, okay, so that seems like that's okay. So now all I've got to do is pull it back out slightly so I can put the arms back in. Get the pin back in, screw it back in. Right, so now we've got to put it all back together again. I'll be back in a second. Right, okay, let's try again. The idea of, if you love buying a gun, spending a load of money on it, to have to keep on taking it apart and upgrade it to an HPA, and that's the sort of thing you get a kick out of, you can get one of these. Let's have a look what we're getting now. Right, so there we go, finally fixed, but that is a hell of a lot of mucking about. So hopefully go and buy yourself a 303. So right, okay guys, so that's it, that's all put back together again and now and up and running. So hopefully I won't have any more problems with it. If I do, you will find out about it, and also the case of that, I think then that will be a case of that I'm done with it. That's far too much mucking about for a gun of that price, as far as I'm concerned. When you take into consideration that I've had to buy the gun and then upgrade it with HPA as well, that then starts coming into being a reasonably expensive gun. And for some people, that does make it out of their price range, which then that's not fair to have someone that's saved hard to get something like that, to then now I've got to buy this, and now I've got to buy this, and then, oh, now it's gone and broken, so now I've got to buy this to fix it, and I've got to now wait for these parts. That's not fair on those people. So hopefully that is a lesson learned, and that might prick some people's ears up on the case of what are you actually doing, because it seems like you've lost your way on what you originally started out to do. So hopefully that will be the end of the I've got to fix that 2 series on the SSX303, but we will see. So thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, guys.